patience with us over the past 10 minutes to get this webinar going. Welcome to our November Tobacco Free Tuesday webinar. As I mentioned earlier, it's one of my favorites. It's really an opportunity that we in the field and the communities get to hear from individuals, right? Real people who are struggling or have struggled with tobacco use, their journey, how they quit, when they started, their whole story, and how that may help us do our jobs better in relating to tobacco users, in relating to organizations that are thinking about policy. So again, we are excited to have this webinar so that you can kind of get a feel of the quit journeys out there. And they're also individual, right? What works for one may not work for another, and their entire journey may be individual. And that's something I think we as field workers need to be aware of. And there are so many changing parts, and that's okay, right? That is definitely okay. So again, put any positive words, and this is throughout. So throughout the entire webinar, if you're thinking of something to share with the speakers, please do so. And Sarah is going to put together a whiteboard of all of the words and all of the encouragements and send it back out to our speakers, and you'll be given that as well. But I would like to go ahead and welcome or introduce Neely Dahl. If you have been with us for our last couple of November webinars, Neely has moderated this entire webinar, and she does it with such grace, and she knows and she's already talked to a lot of the speakers because she has such a personal heart and a passion for tobacco work. And Neely has been a public health professional for over 20 years. She has had the opportunity to work in Belize, the Dominican Republic, and Vanuatu in the South Pacific. Her passion for helping people live a tobacco-free life stems from her being a personal or a former smoker herself. And I really do think that's how Neely relates, because she has experienced it and she knows what everyone is going through. And I think it shows in her work, and it shows in the way she talks to tobacco users. It's just wonderful. But Neely arrived at the University of Virginia's Emily Currick Comprehensive Cancer Center's tobacco treatment program after working with the Virginia Tobacco Control Program within the Blue Ridge Health District. So when I say Neely is family, she really is family. She was a regional coordinator at one time, and has done amazing work with us even after she went to UVA. So Neely, I'm going to thank you for all the technical assistance that you've provided. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Gary and possibly anyone else that we have on the phone.
And I thank you so much for that loving welcome. It really means a lot. You guys are family, and everybody in the tobacco field is family, because I truly believe, like you said, it affects all of us in one form or another. And I just thought of something. I thought, Tiffany, real quick, I'm going to go in and give you Ralph's phone number. So maybe you could call him, and on the side, you could just maybe support him. So give me just a second, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Neely.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Gary, so great to have you on the panel today.
Thank you, Neely. It's nice. It's nice. It's a privilege to be here, for sure.
And I think what's so great is to know that it's been a year already since we've done this panel. And this week is the Great American Smokeout, or Eliminate Tobacco Use. And I just wanted to share a personal note that this Thursday will be my 8 years quit. So I quit on the Great American Smokeout 8 years ago. And so I feel really proud of that. And it's nice to share this joyful time with Gary, because as a quitter, it's always so great to look back at the struggles, but then also know we reached the other side. So Gary, I wanted to start by having you just introduce yourself. Let everybody know how old you were when you started experimenting, and then what is your tobacco of choice? And then what age were you when you started smoking daily? We'll just start with that.
Fair enough. My name's Gary Donovan, and I am 73 years old. I live in Virginia Beach with my wife. And I started smoking at about 12 or 13 years old, I'd snitch a couple of cigarettes from my dad's cigarette pack, and I'd go out in the forest in a little tree house and smoke. Actually, I lived on a farm, and so the first cigarette I did smoke made me very ill. But in my mind at the time, as a young person, you know, I wanted to be like my dad. He was a wonderful model in many ways. And so I would, you know, just smoke less of those cigarettes in a little different way than that first cigarette. And that way my body could tolerate those difficult chemicals that are part of tobacco smoke.
Yeah.
I, in fact, have 28 years now of being free of cigarette smoke. So I'm gonna just, and today is the most important day of all that time, frankly. I am a tobacco smoker of cigarettes primarily, and I'm not sure I've answered all those questions, but
I think you did. And it's so fascinating because it brings back memories of me too, like sneaking cigarettes from my grandparents. And yeah, it's just kind of what we did when we were younger. And did it take multiple times for you to finally quit for good?
Yes, it did. And that's partly why I choose to think of today as the most important day of me not smoking.
Yeah.
As Mark Twain had said or wrote, I'm not sure which, but I heard a quote of him saying that it was easy to stop smoking. He had stopped 1,000 times. Of course, he was an exaggerator, and I certainly never, thank heavens, had to pursue foolishness for that long. But there were several times I had stopped actually and started again. And I understand now that in fact it's not unusual for people to, you know, to have to sort of get in a situation in which they do take and start again. But it's always important to keep trying to stop if one is smoking.
Right. And so then when you finally quit, was there something going on? Was there something that helped you tip over the edge and said enough was enough? Was there something going on in your life?
Well, there's always things going on in our lives, and that's the busyness of them can work really either way. In the case of me stopping, my wife was a grand part of that process because she's quite a supporter. She wouldn't let me smoke in the house except down in the cellar. So that, you know, at first became very obvious that, you know, I wasn't welcome to share that stuff, you know, with the rest of the family. But then, of course, with because along with those number of years I've stopped, those years that I did smoke from those early ages, I had quite an uncomfortable cough with a lot of phlegm coming up from my lungs. And I, you know, along with, you know, smoking, I was also then became a spitter after all, which is, you know, I feel uncomfortable about even thinking about that now. But, and so that, you know, some of the effects of tobacco was having in my life at the time, it became very obvious as my wife then suggested, as I was gaining a understanding a little bit how troublesome this addiction was for me, that, you know, that I did stop smoking, that she said, you know, give yourself a Christmas present, stop, you know, just stop smoking.
You're like, easier said than done.
Well, she had been watching me try, and I had been able to be somewhat successful. So with a little success, one knows that success is possible.
Right.
With meeting other quitters, you know, we share the difficulties as well as the grandeur in becoming healthier individuals. So that's equally important. And I'm not you know, I don't consider myself a you know, reformed smoker. I feel very passionate about others when I notice, and compassionate, you know, how difficult it is to stop smoking.
Yeah.
And and the terrible addiction, frankly, that, you know, that it is.
When you brought up a really good point, because I think oftentimes when we as an individual are trying to quit, we need support. And there's the right type of support, and then there's the frustrating type of support, and then there's the nagging, loving type of support. And so with the best intentions, because I think a lot of family members have the best intentions for individuals and wanting to support their loved ones. How did your family and your wife, how did they support? What did they do that was well? And what would you suggest for other support individuals? How can they better?
Well, I did use a patch system in order to stop smoking too.
Okay.
Because I did realize from those times that I did quit the particularly uncomfortable side effects of withdrawal.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to begin with, an anxiety disorder. So I'm sort of a little bit more under the gun, so to speak, when it comes to managing, you know, my emotions and so on, and my feelings. So the idea of weaning down, was, you know, a very, I thought, a thoughtful one. And so I used the patch system, started out with larger amounts of nicotine, and then would actually add a week or so on to the length of time that was suggested, you know, in stopping. And then when I got down to the smallest patch, I actually would cut it in 4 pieces. And
Oh, wow.
for several weeks, I'd use 3 pieces of that smaller patch. And then I, you know, for 3 weeks, used 2 pieces, and then into 1/4 of that smaller patch. And I would tuck them in under my lip, because I know that, you know, with snuff and other ways of, you know, taking in tobacco, that the membranes in the mouth, you know, I didn't have to, you know, have it necessarily patched on my body. I could actually have a little, you know, that little piece of patch in my mouth, and the nicotine was going in my system.
You're the first individual that everybody I've worked with that I've heard done that approach. I know that for some people on this as an audience member, there's a few different quit methods to help individuals. And the way that I often explain it, there's the medication pathway, and then there's also the clean nicotine pathway. And that includes the patches, the nicotine gum, the lozenges, and the nasal spray. And so you're spot on in the sense that if you use the gum or the lozenges, the nicotine gets absorbed in the mucus layers of your mouth. And so, and with the patch, they usually put it on somewhere from your shoulders to your hips. And you can use all those products basically at the same time, called combination therapy. And it's interesting. I never thought about putting that patch, cutting it small and putting it. I just need to do a little bit more research on that, because I find that really fascinating. Did you ever use any of the nicotine lozenges or the nicotine gum on your quit journey?
You know, I don't recall doing that. However, this is back in 95, 28 years ago.
Okay.
That I stopped. And I was working at you know, at an Indian casino at the time, where there was a lot of smoke going on. So even though I was stopping smoking, one of the deterrents, one of the more difficult aspects, is the fact that here's all the, you know, a lot of smoke in the environment. And there might have been only, you know, 20% of those customers coming in smoking, but the smoke, even with good air, you know, filters and so forth, was still everywhere.
Right.
And so I was, you know, involved with secondhand smoke there. And that made it, you know, it added a very uncomfortable aspect to, you know, my quit journey. But,
And then you would get home and you would have you just smell like it, just permeating from your clothes and everything.
and in that sense, you know, my wife was being affected by it too. Third hand, I'd never heard of third hand was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, third hand smoke. Yeah.
Third-hand smoke.
And that's one of the things that we talk about too, is a trick of the brain, in the sense is that our nose picks up on that thirdhand smoke. And it's almost like this subconscious little itch in the back of our mind that's like, light up, come on, light up. And so it's so key to remove the smell for a lot of people in the beginning of their quit journey, because it's such a trigger. The visual cue of seeing somebody smoke, or an ashtray or a pack of cigarettes, even people on TV, when you see them smoke, it kind of triggers you to want to smoke. So I think oftentimes in the very beginning, it can be, you have to be a little bit strategic, because you need to know yourself. What is your triggers? And what is something that might tip you over? And so when you were quitting, working at the casino, completely surrounded with that smoke, did you find that it made it more difficult, or how did you navigate that?
Well, I did come up in a household where my dad was smoking. So, there was a sense of that being a part of my life early on, of course. What I did find very helpful, though, and one of the ways that my mind was able to more easily deal with the thoughts of, well, gee, maybe I really would like to take a puff, was to say no thank you to myself in my mind. And as I would walk around and see butts on the ground, many of which for years I just tossed, haphazardly here or there out of the window of the car. Of course, sometimes lit. I mean, how foolish is really that? It is. But even seeing a butt on the ground, it would be in my mind with the cigarette type, no, thank you. You see, so I was using that as a technique.
No, thank you. Yeah.
My dad died of lung cancer in 1988, even before I stopped in 95. So, I mean, I knew, doctors say they make men ill, stop that or they will. Back in the late 60s, I constructed a little poem in my dad smoking, and even though I was smoking a little bit here and there, that, I knew all of a sudden that science had proven, the attorney of medicine had come to that conclusion of results of cancer linking with cigarettes, and that my dad then was at risk. And I made a little poem, and I told the poem to my dad, cancer, that idea. And he tried to stop smoking too a number of times, and he was not successful, and so on. So even with all these negative issues that are involved that people are aware of, there's still that lure, still that addiction is such a difficult issue, and our friends may be smoking, and there's a little sense of, well, maybe I could try that too, and so on. So,
and let me ask you this, like, there's one statistic out there that really has stopped me from ever putting another cigarette to my mouth, is that 98% of people who have quit and have just one puff go back to smoking. Have you, from these 28 years, have you put one back to your lips?
I have not. What I have done is picked up the butts from the ground. On my birthday, I've gone around a recreation area or whatever and just, picked up the trash. When I was in the service, I used to call that policing the area.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes a long time for a cigarette butt to deteriorate. I'm not sure it ever goes really back into the ground and provides any type of nourishment for the earth.
I think I did some research on that. It takes like 1 million years or something ridiculous. Maybe now it's a bit different in how they create them. But there's a question, Gary, that in the chat here, it says, what do you think about companies that say vaping helps people quit smoking?
I think the companies often are having their own best interests involved always. And, any person in a company would say, well, of course. Well, I mean, if a company is dealing with issues that are dangerous to public health, I think that that's, the of course should be much more tentative and so forth. I see no evidence where it is shown that vaping, in fact, helps people to quit smoking. I'm very happy I never had a chance to be a vapor, because when it comes to doing things, I tend to do them, with earnestness. And so with the vaping, you go up with a little higher dosage in that liquid, I guess, that goes in. And also, if you take a deep inhale, there's more problematic substance than going into the system. I would suggest, pieces of that patch, rather than thinking that we're going to use a device that's going to make it any safer to take an addictive substance into my body.
That was a really good question, and I was just sitting in a research symposium earlier this year, and a researcher from VCU was looking at the vape products and looking at the heating element inside these products. And one of the things that she recognized under, one of those big microscopes, and they were looking that by the time the heating element on its 150th heat, they could see small metal particulate matter start to slough off. And so people are inhaling really small metal particulate matter deep into their lungs. Science is trying to catch up. And even though vaping, this is my message to my patients that vape. And I say, if you're going to vape, then get off your cigarettes completely. Don't do both. And then once you get on your vape, you got to work on getting down to zero nicotine and then off. But I find that a lot of my vapors, it is very difficult to quit because they're constantly on it. Constantly. And it's very different than smoking, because with smoking, you have to go outside. You have to leave to do something unless you're at your home. But I find that with vapors, it's really hard, especially too, because the nicotine levels in the products can be so high. So people are really getting accustomed to a lot of nicotine. Yeah, it's interesting how that works. So Gary, let's go back a minute. When you were going through your quit, one of the things that we say is that a craving lasts 3 to 5 minutes. And when you're thinking about your quit and going through the cravings, did we get Ralph? Ralph?
Hello?
Hey,
Hello?
Ralph, you made it.
I got on by the phone that time anyway.
Excellent.
Morning, Ralph.
So good to get you on the phone. Everybody, I want to just introduce you quickly to Ralph. And Ralph, I'll have you introduce yourself. But I'm super excited because Ralph is currently in his quit journey. And he is so close to quitting that I thought his story and his motivation and what he's doing right now to help him quit is exciting. So Ralph, would you take a couple minutes to say your name, what's your tobacco of choice, and the age that you started experimenting and the age that you became a daily smoker?
All right. My name is Ralph Prater. I'm from Sturstraff, Virginia. I started smoking cigarettes at the age of 15. I am now 70, so you're looking at 55 years. I averaged a little over a pack a day when I was regularly smoking. And I have, as a lot of people said, I have started quitting probably around 2,000 times in that 55 years.
And what's going on right now in your life that is making this quit different than all your other quits?
Well, I think more now than anything, it's me wanting to quit rather than everybody else wanting me to quit. And I think about my grandkids, and I'd like to see them grow up. And as well as my health, I've had some health issues it's made me concerned about my smoking. And that is the reason I have become very interested in quitting smoking.
And so far on this journey, what's working for you? Because I know when we first started working together, you were a good pack a day smoker, and I think you're down to about 5 now, right?
I'm at 5 a day, yes.
And what
Well,
has
one of the
helped
biggest
you?
things, I'm on a patch,
Yep.
and right now I'm down to the second stage patch, which one of the things that I learned in this journey that helps me is that if I desire a cigarette, I can still smoke it while on a patch, where before I was told I couldn't. And that has helped tremendously, because one of the biggest differences that I got going on right now is that when I do smoke a cigarette, I want that cigarette, not that cigarette wanting me. In other words, it's not, I just got to have it. It was there for a while. No matter where I was at, I had to go smoke a cigarette. Now I can go hours. I have gone days without a cigarette, and I'm okay. But yet, if I want to smoke a cigarette, that's where the 5 cigarettes a day come in. And that has been the greatest help for me.
Way to go. And besides the patch, are you using any other products for those quick relievers?
A quick reliever, every once in a while I will use a piece of gum. I have not used a lot of gum. Actually, I haven't really needed it. I mean, it was when I'm not desiring a cigarette, I'm not desiring a cigarette. And I really don't have to have anything to keep me along with that. The patch seems to be taking care of that part for me. It's just now occasionally, for instance, on my way to work, I'll use to smoke a cigarette. I used to smoke one at lunch, and I used to smoke one on the way home from work. Then I'll smoke another one later on, right before bed. Sometimes one or so in between, but not very often. It's a whole different feeling that now I feel like I'm in control of it now instead of it controlling me.
That's such a good point. Control, because oftentimes I remember, and Gary, you might agree too with this, is sometimes like if you're at somewhere and you're like, where can I step away? Where can I go hide to have a cigarette? Or when am I going to get my next cigarette? And it's like constantly just this weight on your shoulder. And it's wonderful, Ralph, to hear that it's now like, no, it's not controlling you. You're in control, and gaining that control over the cigarette is a mind shift.
Yes. Like you say, that was one of my biggest problems before was if I do not smoke this cigarette, when am I going to get to smoke my next one? I got to smoke this one because it may be 2 hours before I get another one. I don't have that desire now. Like I think I told you yesterday that when we're going to a lot of hospital visits right now. I've got some stuff going on, and my wife just found out she has cancer. When I go to the hospital now, I don't even take cigarettes. Where before I had to go to the smoking garage, or I'm sorry about telling on myself, but somewhere to smoke a cigarette. I know now. I don't even take them.
Yeah. And you guys, was there and for Ralph right now, you're so close to quitting, and it's going to be exciting to hear next year how you remove these last few cigarettes. And Gary, I'm going to go to you first on this. When you were having a craving in the beginning of your quit, what did you do to help you get through that craving? Did you do anything specific, or was the patch working for you and you just didn't? What did you do?
Well, I do know that patch was working for me too, just like it is obviously working too to help with Ralph. The idea of the having a cigarette would be in my mind, and I would say, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
I also would breathe more deeply, I believe, air, sort of to relieve the stress of the thought of, well, I'm gonna have to have one, or I should have one, or could I have one, or I shouldn't have one. It was more like, it's a mindfulness technique that helps to relax us, a deep breath is. And so several in a row can really be helpful to relax a little bit from, an anxious thought of something that would want to overpower me if it had the chance.
That's wonderful. And if you think about it, smoking is a little bit like taking some deep breaths, but with toxins. And so what you're doing is you're bringing in that without. Yeah. And what about you, Ralph? What has been working for you when you do have that craving but you don't want to smoke? What has been a few of your little tricks?
I'm going to go back to the mind thing that I have a lot of mind. I'll think, okay, am I wanting this cigarette, or is this cigarette wanting me? Do I need this cigarette, or do I just want this cigarette? If it's a need, I'm like, no, I don't need it. And I'll, like he said, take a deep breath, get a drink of water, go do something else to occupy my mind. I basically talk myself out of wanting that cigarette or needing that cigarette. That has been one of the biggest things that I have found that has worked for me. It's the mind game. I've had to switch my mind game. Instead of me listening to my mind, I have my mind listening to me.
Right? It is a bit of a mind game when we work through this. And both of you, I believe, are just spot on, because I'm the same way. Being mindful, being able to just pause, listen to the dialogue in your mind, listen to your body, and being able to then choose, right? Like you said, Ralph, taking that control back and knowing that you have the choice. And what choice do you choose? And yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And there was another question that somebody asked, and Ralph, I'll start with you on this one. Everybody is on their own quit journey, right? What works for one doesn't always work for the other. But do you think that there are different quit tools that help different ages? So somebody that's younger versus somebody that's older. Do you think that there's different quit tools for the different ages?
Yeah, yes and no. I think the biggest thing is what you said to start with. It's got to be your own journey, and it has to be your journey, like I said earlier, not somebody else's journey. I don't think, other than maybe a doctor, I don't think anybody else can convince you to stop. I think you have to convince yourself. That is what I have found.
Yeah.
When I really got on the determination that I wanted to quit, it's made a difference in me. Then, hey, I got to quit because everybody's on my back. And I think that's one thing you got to learn, that it has to be your journey when you're ready to set your outlook on how you want to do it.
And then being able to play with that to figure out what makes
Oh, yeah.
Being able to explore the different options, I think, and Gary, before I go in, and you have any thoughts about that, different quitting tools for different ages?
Well, I have thought about that question, and I wish that I had some, excuse me, a good sense of what that would be. But were I trying to really arrive at an answer, I would go to the younger folks and try to get a sense of why they are starting to smoke, or why are they vaping?
Yeah.
Starting to vape. And just as Ralph said, and as you have also amplified, the idea of it being each of our journeys, and there are missteps that young people take, and we all took as young people. And gosh, I know my dad didn't really want me smoking, but way back then, and you could get in a machine a 35-cent pack of cigarette without anyone questioning you. So, you know, public health has a big part to play in this, and doctors have a big part to play in this. It's true that generally speaking, of course, vaping is a different device and the tobacco is not so noticeable with smelling, but a parent could be able to tell, you know, if a child is smoking from the, you know, tobacco because of the smell. And unfortunately, it makes it more difficult really to know if people are making bad choices if they're using vaping devices.
Right. Well, and I think for me, one of the things that helped me on my quit journey is that I found one of the quit smoking apps on my phone. And for me, when it was a free app and I can't remember the name of it, but when I was feeling like, oh, can I do this? I would go to my app and it would show me how much money I had saved, how many cigarettes I hadn't smoked, what was going on with the health of my body. And so oftentimes when I would pull up that app and look at it, I'd be like, okay, you don't want to start from scratch again because you've worked so hard to get to this point. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a big one right there, because that's what I've been faced with lately. Because like I say, I think maybe I had said I had actually quit like in the middle of this, like 4 or 5 days that I didn't smoke any, didn't even desire any. And there was some medical problems. I decided to go back to a couple a day. And I'm thinking, okay, that's fine, but you don't work too hard to get this far. You're not going to go back to where you were. And that has been a big help for me in that mindset too.
And you just said something that's really powerful, Ralph, is that I think a lot of times when people are on a quit journey, if they've gone 3 or 4 days or 5 days or whatever day, and then something happens and you slip back, the point is not to throw in the towel and just go back to what you were, but to go recognize, again, be mindful of what's going on, recognize how to get back to where you were at and to grow and learn from that opportunity. There's no failing. To me, there's no failing on a quit journey. It's all learning opportunities, because if you've had a bad day, let's pause. What was going on? What can we learn from that day and be better prepared for when it hits us again?
Right. And one of the other things that's been a help for me as far as tool-wise is, like I said, I'm smoking, 5 cigarettes a day. Well, guess what? I only take 5 cigarettes with me. So once I got to choose, when I get down to that 5th one, is right now the one I want to smoke my last cigarette today, or do I want to wait a while longer? Because I'm not getting any more. I don't have any more with me. 5 is all I got. Now, actually, like yesterday and today, I've gone down to 4.
Nice.
That's what I take with me. I don't take a pack with me and say, I want to smoke 4 of these. I take 4 cigarettes with me. That also, like, hey, I don't have but 1 more left for today. You better wait and enjoy it. And it's worked. That's worked a lot for me, too.
Nice. Having that pack with you just makes it easier to keep pulling them out from it. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Gary, there was a question in the feed here that, they mentioned that you've done, and Ralph done, some mindfulness techniques, breathing and such. Did you take any classes, or did you watch any videos on some relaxation or mindfulness techniques?
I became a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher, which is a form of moving meditation. It comes from China. Most cultures have developed different relaxation methods. Some is music, some incorporate prayer. The Chinese had developed breathing and moving techniques, and and actually stillness type meditations. And my last 17 years when I was employed, I was teaching at senior centers, in fact, Tai Chi and Qigong to folks for general health. But that became really one of my continuing techniques in order to relax myself from the difficulties that the world, whether it's COVID, whether it's countries coming to foolish actions, and or whether it's the illnesses and the trouble that happened to ourselves or our families. I'm a cancer survivor. 3 years ago, I had my bladder removed, due to cancer. It's well known that cancer of the bladder often is caused by the constituents of tobacco smoke.
Yeah.
Just 2 months ago now, I'm coming into my 3rd month of recovering from a lung cancer that was removed from the lobe of my left lung. Successfully. It was caught in an early stage, and I'm recovering well now. I can't imagine if I had been still smoking and then suffering a cancer, how difficult it would be to try to stop smoking then.
Right.
Frankly. So I'm so happy that I've kept away from those problem substance, and not have to worry about it. Take care of my health now.
True. And you brought up a really good point, and those in the audience, that if you are a smoker, if your loved one is a smoker, and we always encourage people to do the lung cancer screening. It's Lung Cancer Screening Awareness Month. And I personally just did my first one this year. Super easy, the low dose screening. And then you, I got the letter saying everything was good and come back next year. So I think, and it's true, research has shown that if you can catch it early, that, that they can treat you and you can live a quality of life. It's when you don't do preventative care and that's when it can lead into problems. Yeah. And Hannah, you asked about an app. I cannot remember the app that I used. It was just, in the app store, I just put quit smoking app. I went through a few and I found one. And then there is the Quit Now Virginia does have an app now for those that are interested. And there's a link in the chat. So I encourage you to explore, get out there and find out what's going to work for you. There are so many different types of support out there. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me and the tobacco control team. And I think we're about to wrap up here. So let me just ask one final question, Ralph and Gary. I'll start with you, Gary. What advice would you give a person who is starting their quit journey now and those that are struggling to remain quit? What would be some words of advice?
For those who are smoking and trying to quit, don't stop trying to quit. Don't stop trying to stop smoking. Just keep stopping smoking and trying.
Yeah.
Those who, and there was a second part of the question, I actually forget it.
Those struggling to quit.
The struggle is a struggle for now, but it won't last for a long time. Over a struggle, just keep at it and make a good effort. That's all it requires. Make a good effort.
Nice. True.
It'll get easier.
It will. It does get easier. You're right. It really does. Ralph, any advice you would give? Because you're almost there. What advice are you giving yourself?
I think you said it best, and I'll repeat it. There is no failure in it. If you, like I said earlier, if you have to have a cigarette, you didn't fail. You didn't fail at all. Just pick it back up and keep going. And just have that mindset that you can do it, because you can. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, it's worth the effort. And I think that's the big thing you have to keep in your mind. That's the one thing that keeps me going.
Nice.
Like you said, I had a bout with cancer 3 years ago also. I go every 3 months for checkups. I'm going tomorrow, matter of fact, for my lung and head x-rays and MRIs. And when you know you go in there and you're giving yourself a better chance of being successful in those tests, it makes a difference. And
Sure
that's
does.
what you have to keep in your mind.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everybody who was on today and helping us figure out this technology. Still not easy. And so I'll pass it over to Gina, and looking forward to next year.
All right.
Thank you so much, Neely, for moderating this. Two things I just heard from both Gary and Ralph: no failing on a quit journey, and don't stop trying, right? The main themes. And
Yes.
Gary, you know, you've been quit 28 years, Neely 8 years, and Ralph, you are still in your journey, but doing an amazing job. And I thank all of you for sharing your stories. This was so inspirational to me as I kind of learn more about the journey that you are all taking. Ralph, just to you, you know, keep up the great work. We are here with Quit Now Virginia Services. I know you work with Neely, whom is amazing. And I just know very well that you will definitely complete your quit journey and continue on. And I really appreciate your real words to us and just joining us here today. Gary, thank you as well. Gary has been a continuous member or participant of this webinar and a partner of ours for so many years, and really brings to today his really great thoughts about his journey over 28 years, the good, the bad, the challenges. So it all helps us to understand better what we're doing there. So again, from the entire tobacco control program, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I do want to invite you all to our next, it's our holiday party, okay, December the 19th, just a few days before Christmas. We're having a holiday party. We'll have it in meeting format, so we will be able to see everyone, and you can jump on screen, you can show your face, wear a festive sweater, and join our holiday party. I will say we have not finalized plans for our party yet. So if you do, I'm going to send this invitation out to you, and we haven't even talked about it as a team that I'm doing this, but if you have a nice show and tell activity, right, that you want to get on and show how to make your famous Christmas cake, you come right on. If you have a special tradition that you would love to share, please do so. If you want to sing some Christmas or holiday carols, definitely do that. Please reach out to me, Tiffany, Sarah, or Nicole, and we can have you as part of the agenda. Again, a very fun day of just kind of being with friends and partners in the work that we do. So December the 19th, the holiday party. Start planning now. I want to know all of your traditions out there. So again, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your November. Remember this Thursday, Great American Smokeout. And as we go into the Thanksgiving Day next week, just be thankful for everything that we have. And I'm very thankful for everyone on this call today and my entire team with the Tobacco Control Program. And just very thankful and grateful of what we have. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you in December. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.